Welcome to 23 Degrees Sideways. Um, so, I want to talk about Jordan Peterson. Jordan Peterson is kind of a tragic figure right now, and there's an objective, like outside of the universe, off the playing field amusement to how it seems like he has scripted himself as a tragic figure, and it's almost like Jordan Peterson could teach a class on archetypes or maps of meaning about Jordan Peterson. I don't agree with Jordan Peterson in every particular. I have some fundamental disagreements. You know, there's that whole idea that the world is a pessimistic place, that the world is suffering, and rising above the suffering is the goal. And it really doesn't work for my life script, the way I'm playing the game. It doesn't work for me. So, I disagree with that. There's other stuff. But I have a lot of areas of agreement with him. And I think that he's a very valuable and honestly integrous person. I think that he really has a desire to help, and that his refusal to acknowledge or to cave into the social justice, the authoritarianism, the Marxism, whatever you want to call it, I think that is a huge, wonderful example to set. At the same time, he's not right about everything, but there are things that he is right about. Like creative responsibility is definitely. Jordan Peterson is very polarizing because he does express so deeply some of the fundamental differences in worldview between the people who would rule you and the people who would tell you to rule yourself. I'll get into that more as this goes on. I think this is going to be a series. But right now, I want to talk about those people who celebrate the tragedy of Jordan Peterson. Now, those people are necessary. If you're going to run a tragedy script, if your game this lifetime is to be a tragic hero, then yeah, you're going to have to deal with people who celebrate your tragedy. It's almost like you can tell the greatness of a man by the level of celebration when something bad happens to him, or the level of influence of a man. Whatever, something like that. Jordan Peterson made a boneheaded mistake and trusted a doctor to prescribe him a medication. He's had a lot of difficulty with recovering from that medication. The side effects of trying to get off that medication have been horrendous, notably for him. And it was a boneheaded mistake. This is a guy who literally has decades of experience of doctors being wrong about health issues involving his family. We're literally at a point where he's literally at a point where he knows that if a doctor says it, it's probably not helpful or not true. Think about this. You deal with Michaela and the carnivore diet stuff, and the idea that autoimmune issues have such a huge impact on him and his daughter, his family. All this stuff kind of goes together, right? And then he trusted a doctor to prescribe him a psychiatric medication that is impossible to successfully get off of with no side. Like, you don't go back to normal. You don't go back to, you can rise above it, but you don't. This messes up your body, your brain, the physical structure permanently in some way. And he trusted a doctor to prescribe this. And, he didn't know. He didn't know how bad it was. Boneheaded. Just boneheaded, okay? But probably necessary part of the tragedy script, right? What happens on the left, though, is that people celebrate this. People use the fact that he took a psychiatric medication on a prescription as proof that he is some sort of no-good druggie, or that he's incompetent, or that he shouldn't be listened to, or that his ideas about personal freedom are bunk. That there's no way anything he said can ever matter because he is a druggie. And that's the compassion of the left. It's wrong. It's completely wrong. I mean, pretty much every attack on Peterson has been wrong. I've tried to get into the headspace because I don't agree with him on everything. But the attacks are boneheaded. I'm used that term again. The attacks are bullshit for the most part. And where they aren't complete fabricated bullshit, they're this weird extension bullshit. You can make an argument that in a public university setting, if you live in a country where it is permissible for the government to tell you how to speak while you're on the job, that it's reasonable to say that there's some argument that they can tell you how to address people. There's limits to that. There's specifically academic freedom limits to that. There's all sorts of limits to that. But it's an argument you can make, but the argument doesn't stay there. The argument gets extended into full-on weird, intolerant social justice hate crap. So anyway, I'm capable of seeing logic, but my analysis of the broader left, the social justice warriors, the social justice movement, critical social justice theory, basically anything that labels itself progressive, Marxist, neo-progressive, neoliberal, is that I watch them celebrate when Jordan Peterson suffers. And that's some pretty nasty shit right there. So if you want to hold people accountable, that's one area to hold people accountable. They don't even have a map. Like I have a map where I realize that, and you don't have to believe this, that life continues, consciousness continues. Consciousness is sort of a permanent state, and that the life we're playing right now is kind of a game. It's kind of I'm not saying it's a meaningless game, but it's kind of a game. We have scripts, we have things that we're good do, we have goals. The goals aren't the same for all the people. Importances aren't the same for all people. And when you die, you're going to do it again, or you're going to choose to do it again, or choose to go off and do something else. There's a consciousness there. And whether you think it's a splinter of the cosmic all-consciousness, or that we are literally developing larval cosmic consciousnesses of ourselves, and this is a kind of a boot camp, none of that matters. Reincarnation, consciousness, extending beyond death, that stuff, that's very real to me. So in my framework, I can look at something like the tragedy of Jordan Peterson and say, from an outside viewpoint, from above the game, you can find a kind of a level of humor in the prophet of tragedy becoming a figure of tragedy, But that's not celebrating his pain. And a lot of the left really celebrates his pain. And here's the thing, their worldview doesn't include any justification. Their worldview, their proclaimed worldview, is that society exists to make everyone equal and just and whatever. And then they celebrate. They celebrate when it doesn't work because they hate a person. That is some fucked up shit. And, if you identify as a progressive, Marxist, neo-progressive, liberal, whatever, I want you to really think about that and think about your worldview. Stay sideways, have fun, be creative, and maybe think Schadenfreude is not a positive aspect. Have a good one.